All right. Hey, Shannon, how's it going?
Hi, it's good. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
So I just wanted to get your super casual and a fun way um, experience of working with us and what that was like, and just sort of how you felt before the process and now, and where your son is now going, which I won't say anything, but that's fantastic. So I'd like to start here, which is what were you struggling with in the recruiting process before you came to us?
Okay. Yeah, I think we were struggling with a couple of things. I think the first thing that we were struggling with is that Brody's our son, and his high school recruiting situation had gotten rather complicated because he'd had three head coaches in his 3 years on the varsity team. So the relationships at the high school with coaches had had dissolved and were being rebuilt. And that compounded with the timing for him and that he was a senior. And the time was like the time was now. There was really there's no next year for him. So those two things had really come together. The other thing that we were struggling with is that the whole process felt like a black box. We wanted to be proactive and we wanted to help him. And it was really difficult to know how to do that. And while his current high school head coach is amazing, I we felt limited in relying on his relationships.
Yeah. So
So
it's going to be a combination. Sorry, I cut you off.
no, it's okay. It was a combination of the timing of his year being a senior, the churn of coaching at his school that had left the high school without solid relationships with college coaches, and the fact that the process itself just feels kind of opaque and hard to navigate unless you're in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, very cool. So when you were experiencing all of those problems, even before you came to us, I would say, how were you trying to solve those problems yourself?
Good question. So we were trying to be proactive in working with our head coach at the high school, who was awesome. I don't want him to feel in any way like this, is a reflection of his efforts because it was not. We were trying that. We have some good family friends whose kids have also played college sports and are in the recruiting process. So we were tapping into their experience and knowledge. And we had signed up for a field level profile, and we're paying for the sort of mid-tier service and using that to proactively contact coaches. And that, quite frankly, that only worked for junior colleges and D3 schools. Like it seems like the smaller schools who don't have budget or who use that particular platform, at least for football.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, it's never, that's the one thing that I want, especially parents to understand is um, it's not just relying on your coach. Like you could have an amazing coach, but also it's the proactive piece on your end too, right? Which is like it's never to take any like put blame on a coach or a travel
Right.
coach or a high school coach. Like never. Like
Right.
they are doing the best that they can too. They have so many kids. There's so much on their plate
Right.
as well.
Totally. Yeah.
So that totally makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. That
Yeah.
tracks entirely.
The other thing I would say that was good is good for any parent is that no two sports are alike. So our really good friends have a fantastic a daughter, soccer player, right? So she's headed to a D2 school to play soccer, learning about their experience and then trying to translate, well, what about that process is the same or different for football? Because they're different animals, right? So it's
Yep.
easy to get caught up in like, oh, Chloe's doing this. Why aren't we? We should, right? It's like, well, it's not the same. Soccer and football, girls soccer and football are very different.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. And it's nice to be able to lean on parents who have been through the process and have that experience, but then also understanding the nuance between the different sports and how there might be other things that you should be doing or like trying to give you the best shot.
yeah.
Um, okay. So that's what you tried to solve it. And then you came to us. And so how did we help you if we did, how did we help you? What did you find particularly helpful about our program and kind of what we do?
Yeah. Um, I found a few things really helpful. So I was first of all, I think the overall insight into the process um, was really, really helpful. So just seeing the like from the whole and the whole playbook. So the other piece of this is the way the content is organized is really, really consumable. So the short clips, the way they're very focused, but having that overarching, like taking you all the way through the process, was incredibly valuable. And then the level of detail that sits inside of each of the coaching video segments and the playbooks that supported it was incredibly helpful. So it's like, I mean, I come from a world of process, and I come from a world of client relationships, and I know that every context is different. And it was like having a insider's view into how college recruiting works. Because I was feeling like we might be doing things. In fact, I know we did actually that are totally wrong. Like in that world, in that context, there was no way to know that without having some guidance that was really specific that took us through the process. So I found
Awesome.
that really helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad. The other thing that was cool too, I think, with your guys' story in particular is, and correct me if I'm wrong. So we have office hour calls, right, that people can pop on and ask questions. And you and your husband have very intense jobs. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you guys came to a single one
No,
of
and
them.
yes, and
We,
so you're in the beginning, you're and actually throughout, but particularly in the beginning, your willingness to be directly involved and to help us one-on-one. Sort of, you were basically on call on email for the first week or two was really, really helpful.
Yeah, I know we
And
went back and forth via email a lot, which is
yeah,
great because I think a lot of people have that fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm busy. What if I can't make the calls? Am I left to fend on my own? And like the hope is that it's like, no, like
I
the
didn't
hope is
know
that,
I didn't feel that way at all. In fact, I felt that was the other thing that I would say is really helpful, Jack, is just at least as a parent, when you have a kid who has a big dream and you're doing whatever you can to help that to be possible for them. And we were feeling like we were sitting in a reactive position, like that the playbook and your support allowed us to shift into a much more proactive um, way of supporting. And just that alone felt like a huge lift.
awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
Um, real and before we get to where he's going now, like the results that you saw, um, were you hesitant to buy? Like when we first had that conversation, I remember I was chatting with you and your husband. Were you hesitant to buy? If so, why? What reservations did you have? How are you feeling about that?
Um, I don't remember feeling particularly hesitant to buy. I felt like our initial introductory call with you was super helpful, and based on the way that you showed up and were really direct about what you thought would help and what you thought wouldn't help, like even you're sort of like, no, you don't need to do this. Forget what it's called, but the like buying the automatic email thing, that scripty
Yeah,
thing. You were like, no, I don't think you need that. Like that level of directness was really helpful. We honestly were the conversation that we had outside of that is like, would we rather spend the money and know that we've done everything we can for Brody, or would we rather not spend the money and regret it and he doesn't get to play? And we decided that was that was reason enough for us to make the investment.
yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I think that's the best way to view it. Like your job as a parent is not to take you know, a player who maybe isn't a D1 caliber and turn them into a D1 player, or like your job is not to control those things that are completely outside of your control, right? Your
Yeah.
job is just like, how can I support my kid? How can I give them the best chance? And that's really what this is all about, and kind of which leads me to the results. So, like, where did this lead? And what's going on now with
Yeah.
Brody?
Well, what I will say, because I think this is helpful, if for another family or parent, is that in the beginning, it led to a lot of interest, right? So I was really impressed with how following the quick video strategy, and at one point I think I'd sent you an email, but we had interest from D1 down to D3 for Brody, actually down to JC for Brody. And that was another that's sorry, this is I'm sort of answering a different question first, but that's kind of hard to know how to navigate because you feel like you're playing like you're dating lots of people at the same time and it starts to feel like, oh God, I'm supposed to do that. It was like,
Yeah.
no, that's the beginning, right? That's like actually what we're supposed to do. So it generated a ton of interest, and ultimately he got an offer to Carroll College in Helena, Montana, which is an NAIA college in the Frontier Conference. And it was a school that I think is a really great fit for him, both athletically and academically. So we're excited. And
That's
he,
fantastic.
yeah,
Oh, love that. Okay,
yeah.
beautiful. Well, it was an absolute pleasure working with you guys. I know that you and I specifically sent a bunch of emails back and forth. Um, and I'm super excited for you guys. I'm glad that this worked out. Even if we had like a tiny part to play in that, I'm just like really happy that this worked out for you guys. And yeah, just thanks for your awesome communication. It was wonderful to get to know you.
Thank you, you too. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right.
Shannon.
Yeah.
Bam. Awesome.
Okay.
That was
All
great.
right.
Are you cool? Are you cool if I post that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I hope I was specific enough, Jack. I mean, I was really impressed with the playbook. Because we do learning and development in my company, I know how much work that is. I was like, damn, it's a lot of work to like write all those scripts. First of all, not just like you gotta have you gotta have the thing in your
Yeah.
head, and then you gotta translate it into video
Yeah.
and video scripts and slides and playbooks. I mean, it's a lot. It's really well done.